You ready? Let's do this. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GROklahoma podcast, where we amplify the voices advancing clinical and translational research in Oklahoma and beyond. Today, I'm joined by someone whose career perfectly embodies what it means to move science from the bench to the bedside and even beyond. He's the George Lynn Cross Research Professor and Regents Professor of Medicine. He's also the Chief of Digestive Diseases and Nutrition and Easing Chair of Oncology at the University of Oklahoma Health Sciences. He's a nationally recognized expert in gastrointestinal cancers and solid tumor biology, with a track record of translating basic science into life-saving innovation. He's also the scientific founder of COARE Holdings, a cutting-edge preclinical biopharma company developing first-in-class therapeutics to target the cells responsible for tumor initiation, resistance, and metastasis. But behind those impressive titles is a story forged by curiosity and, yes, a little inspiration for medical TV shows. Today on the podcast, we'll talk about how those early influences shaped his career, and we'll also talk about critical areas relevant to our research community, including entrepreneurship, equity, and resilience, along with some practical tips for navigating academic medicine and building transformative networks. Everyone, please join us in welcoming Dr. Courtney W. Houchen to the podcast. Hello.
Wow, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Where'd you get all that information from?
I wonder where.
Well, thank you very much.
Shout out to your team for helping set all of this up. And so thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Mm-hmm. And to Janice Campbell for recommending you. To get us started, I'm always curious to know just the early years, because I see that as a way to explore what's currently happening in one's life. So how and where did you grow up?
So I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I went to public schools. Well, in fact, I was in the first Head Start program probably in the United States in the early 60s. I went to Tilden High School in Brooklyn. I was math, science emphasis, so I actually went from 7th to 9th grade and then went directly to high school after that.
Wow.
I played varsity baseball, left as the captain of the team. And some claim to fame, I went to the same high school that Al Sharpton went to. But,
nice.
But I was there 4 years after him.
Oh, okay.
Then I went on to Howard University. I received a National Competitive Scholarship to go there. And then I did not get into medical school right away. And I went to graduate school at Atlanta University, which at the time was a historically Black graduate school in the Clark Atlanta University Center, where Morehouse and Spelman are. And that's where I had my first introduction into research. Mm. And that's probably where I began to like research, maybe too much. And I went on there to work for a year in the biotech industry, but I applied for medical school again, and I finally got in. I went to Temple University Medical School. Mm. But the interesting thing about this, if we're talking about my whole career, my two research mentors while I was at Atlanta University, both did postdoctoral research fellowships with Nobel laureates.
Oh, wow.
One was Gunther Blobel, that was for my research advisor named Dr. John Brown, and the other was David Sabatini, and that was Irene Brown. And those two very, very tough African-American research scientists, PhDs, probably brainwashed me into where I am right now. So when I applied for, when I was in my first year of medical school, I had the opportunity to work in a lab or to shadow in a physician's office or do something else for the first summer. I chose to work in the research lab of a famous blood thrombosis doctor, Dr. Ronald Coleman. Mm. And he gave me an index card of what he wanted me to accomplish over the summer. And he left and went to Belgium for the summer. And I had to work with his laboratory staff, and they helped me to get everything done, which I did.
Nice.
At the end of the rotation, some of the neighboring scientists wanted to know where I was going. And I said, I'm going back to medical school. And they said, medical school? I said, yes, I'm a medical student. They said, oh, we thought you were a graduate student.
Wow.
Had we known you were a medical student, we wouldn't have helped you. They actually told me that. But anyway, I went on to do medicine, finished medicine, and when time to apply for subspecialty, I wanted to do gastroenterology. And I also did a month in a research laboratory of Dr. Stephen Meltzer when I was at University of Maryland. And that allowed me, again, more research experience, which allowed me to get a fellowship in gastroenterology at Washington University, which was one of the top universities in the United States. And if it were not for my research experience and letters from real high-powered scientists, I probably would have never gotten this opportunity.
Thanks for detailing all of that. There's so much to unpack from there. But quickly, so you grew up in New York, in Brooklyn. How many siblings did you grow up with?
Just me.
Just you, okay. And so you talked about your love for research, and then you also working in that lab, and also your educational trajectory. Which one came first? Was it your love of research, or you just finding yourself in the lab?
Oh, no. I was just trying to trying to get in medical school.
Oh, I see.
2, once in medical school, I was trying to get a fellowship, which gastroenterology is one of the most competitive, it still is one of the most competitive fellowships in medicine. And without some
experience,
some research experience, real research experience, is very hard unless you have outstanding grades, outstanding scores, outstanding looks, outstanding heritage, all of that, and which I didn't have any of those things. So I was fortunate enough to do research.
Okay.
But when I went to WashU, I still had no intention of doing research as a career. But what happened was I was encouraged to apply for a Robert Wood Johnson minority faculty development program, which allowed research and more research funding, training, mentorship among a national group of scientists and likewise candidates. And I, again, had no real hope of getting it, but...
So try it anyways.
But I tried it because they gave me the opportunity to have a weekend off, and I could go to visit my folks in New York. So I went to the interview. I didn't get it, but the second time around, I did get it. And
nice.
That's probably what has, again, driven my interest towards academics. But after having all these things happen, you finally have to give up and say, maybe I'm meant to do research. So that's where I am.
So what has kept you in research for so many years? Because you've been doing translational research now for quite a while.
I actually, as I said earlier, I really enjoy the opportunity to do something that others have not done. And my goal all my life, actually, even though I just wanted to be a doctor, but was to cure cancer. And even my friends from college thought that they knew that I was going to end up curing cancer. But what I found in research, it gives you a different experience, a different attitude when you see a patient. So when I see a patient and diagnose them and figure those things out, I'm always thinking of what could I do to cure this patient? Not, as opposed to how do I treat the patient? How do I make them feel better? How do I get them to go home? I want to know how to cure it and why it hasn't been cured. Why this disease hasn't been cured. And that's how I think. And I think the research indoctrination makes you think that way. But everything still has a clinical focus for me.
Yeah.
And I actually enjoy it. I enjoy research probably more than I enjoy just straight medicine, because research to me is just a bit more challenging.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate all of that. Makes a lot more sense now. So let's turn the dial back a little bit. What forced you to medicine? And I'm reading your bio, I could tell of your love of watching medical TV shows. And how did that really influence your decision to go into medicine? And I want to know what the shows were, by the way.
Wow, where'd you get this?
I wonder where.
Okay. You know, it's interesting. When I saw the review that you did on me, and I thought about it. There was a movie when I was a little kid. I don't remember when it was, where it was, but Sidney Poitier was the star. And he was an intern. He was an African-American intern in a predominantly white hospital. And he went through a lot of racial tension, but he maintained his pride and integrity throughout, right? But that's one of the things that forged me. But knowing that I was going to do this podcast, I said, let me find out what movie that was.
Was it No Way Out?
And it was, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, 1950. No Way Out.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
and he was he basically was taking care of two criminals.
Yeah.
And he diagnosed a brain tumor, and he got in trouble for that because they thought he murdered the guys. But that was the movie that made me actually cement that I wanted to be like Sidney Poitier. But I should have wanted to be the actor, but yeah. So that was one of the movies. Another movie, a TV show, was Dr. Kildare.
That's a classic one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Marcus Welby, MD. Those are the three things that really kind of sponsored me towards medicine. Plus, my father wanted me to be a doctor. My father's a Jamaican guy, and he wanted me to be a doctor my whole life.
Thanks for sharing that. So we've talked about what solidified your interest in medicine research. Now let's talk about oncology. Were there any moments early on, perhaps your mentors, patients, or even specific episodes from those TV shows that really geared your interest towards oncology?
No, not really. I've always thought that if you were going to do research, clinically relevant, curing cancer seemed to be the most difficult, but straightforward. The question is what type of cancers I wanted to actually cure.
Yeah, all right.
And when I did my GI fellowship, and I worked with a gastroenterologist who was looking at intestinal stem cells, as they are the cells that repopulate the gastrointestinal tract after severe injury. And my thought was these stem cells, if they do all of what they're supposed to do, if you mutate them, they'll probably cause cancer. And of course, that turned out to be actually the case. So my idea when I left fellowship was to study cancer stem cells, and that's what I'm still doing as of today. But what we found since then is that these cancer stem-like cells that are responsible, they're very rare, difficult to find, resistant to drugs. They're the cells that start the entire process, tumorigenic process, and metastatic process, and probably end up causing all the mortality that we see in cancer. And that's kind of what got me into that field, and that's where I am currently.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So let's I think it's a perfect segue to talk about your current work, which is focused on solid tumors and GI cancers. What really excites you most right now about that?
Well, again, we started the company when we found at the time, it was a new potential marker of these cells. And we thought that, if this is a marker of these cells, if we can just figure out how to kill the cells, everything would be over. But of course, it was not that easy. It's not that easy. But we have been focused on that throughout. But when we identified this cell, I applied for a patent to develop drugs to target the cells and maybe eliminate them. And the university suggested that if we file a patent, you have to either find a company that will support further research, or you have to start your own company. So that's what I did. So in 2010, we started COARE with the idea of we want to kill cancer at its core. But CORE was the website was taken.
Of course, that's a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, so we threw an A in there, and then that's it.
What does the A symbolize?
No, the A is so it's not CORE.
Okay, well, it still has the same like pronunciation. Core. Yeah. Okay.
so that's how we started the company, and we have been. We were initially funded using an IRS qualifying therapeutic development grant, which was sponsored by President Obama. And it was a highly competitive process. And we received $250,000 to basically start the company as it is now. We then were funded by small business innovative research grants, phase ones, and then we were fortunate enough to get a few phase twos. And that is really what has kept us alive on the company side. Yeah. And on the basic science side, NIH, VA, and other DOD and other philanthropic organizations have kept the research lab intact. So they're two separate entities. One is applied research, and the other side is basic research. So I'm a founder of CORE, but I don't work for CORE. I work for the university, and I'm just a chief medical advisor for CORE until somebody buys us out, and I retire and move to the islands.
Okay. So I know you say you're the chief medical advisor, but what's been your interaction with them, especially when it comes to their commercially focused pipeline for drug discoveries and all?
Well, the bottom line to what I've learned the hard way is that without funding, you can't move anywhere.
True.
And although the government sources for research funding have been good, which is why we don't have a lot of investors. We don't have any investors really, and we don't have anybody that we have to listen to right now. You cannot cross that valley from idea to implementation without real money. And when I'm talking about real money, I mean millions. So that challenge, I've delayed it for as long as possible, but now that's the ultimate requirement. And unfortunately, this seems to be a very tough time for that because of the scientific research environment right now. But that's the rate limiting step is raising money.
Yep. Money is what's the word? Oil, lubricant needed to drive a lot of research forward, right?
Lubricant, gas, water.
Yes. All right. So you have a dual career in academic medicine and research, and you've also talked about how, especially research, helps for what you do in academic medicine, what would you say were some of the most unexpected challenges you've had in building that dual career?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Oh, I said, well, what would you say are some of the most unexpected challenges in building a dual career in academic medicine and research?
I think it's a hard question to answer, but I think the most unexpected thing that I've realized is that the trend away from physicians who are also scientists towards physicians who generate revenue for these academic systems, as opposed to in the past, if you were interested in just working hard, making a lot of money, you would go into private practice. But now, to sustain these major academic institutions like we have, many of the clinicians have to focus on that, which doesn't give them time to do research.
Yeah.
That I didn't think that the transition would be so quick. But that's really the big dilemma, is how we maintain physicians, scientists that answer these questions that have never been answered without real training. Because research, you have to go through this, how does it say, this gauntlet that I've been through since 1990. You have to go there to be successful. You just can't get around it. There's no easy way to do research.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, you've hit a critical point that I've also observed because as part of my job at the OSCTR, who's sponsoring this podcast, we've had a lot of conversations in assessing the barriers, needs, and facilitators of clinical and translational research in Oklahoma. And from the clinical side of things, one of the biggest barriers that they talked about was not having, being able to have time to do research. And they also talk about the priorities of the RVUs, and what the management really prioritizes is how much are you bringing in rather than, research. And it takes a while for you to get someone that can advocate for you. Given that you're in position of power, for those who might be listening, especially those who are in a position of power as you and who might not really know so much about the importance of research, how can you speak to the importance of having that balance, especially for those who really want to do research, but they can't get that buyout for their time?
Well, it's essential that you can get the time, but the time has to be associated with resources too. But just the time is not enough, because I like to tell people, they say, "Oh, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time." I said, "Well, sleep less." I'm just joking. But the bottom line though is you have to have dedicated time and mentorship and support and assistance and expertise in order to make it happen. You can't do it without it, which is why you have to kind of start. I like to say brainwashing students when they're very young, because at some point you will like it when you make a discovery, or an experiment works, and something you thought was not going to happen happens, or something that happens turns out to be important. And I remember the first time I presented any science at all, and I was a fellow. It was an oral presentation at our national meeting. And at the time, I was very nervous speaking in front of Rig Room, and I really didn't understand much of what I was doing. But what I recognized is, by doing an oral presentation, I could always go to the meeting. Because if you didn't have a presentation, you had to stay home and take care of the patients. So I made it my point to make sure that I had a presentation every year for the first 10 years of my career. So during that meeting in May, I could be there. And there you get to meet people from all over the country, all experts all over. And that's how you actually begin a scientific career, because you get to, when you present, people talk to you later and they look at your papers. And that's how you get known throughout the country, as opposed to just being at your local institution and doing great work.
That's a great advice. Thank you so much for that. So one of the things you've done so far is being able to work with people across different sectors. What would you say are some of your best practices in establishing those interdisciplinary and cross-sectional relationships that you've built over time?
I think for me, I collaborate with a lot of people, even on this campus. And of course, I had to sell everybody on DCLK1 biology, because that's all I work on is DCLK1. But I was able to do it because in whatever their fields were, I could make a link to what they're doing to this very important protein. And I've gotten, especially here in the GYN oncology department, several of the investigators have gotten grants looking at the role of DCLK1, our target protein, in their specific cancers. We've also had in aging, in liver, and several other things despite gastrointestinal cancers. So I think by bringing something to the collaborative effort, it works out. So they get something, I get something. But it's not like I'm just collaborating so they can do the work for me.
Yeah.
And they're not talking to me just so I can do the work for them. So it really is, that is what collaboration is about.
Yeah. And I imagine that it also comes from knowing what your strengths are and what the strengths you see in the other person or the other team, and then building that together to make something beautiful come out of that relationship.
Right. That's it. That's the goal.
Yeah. All right. Now, for early stage researchers or even academic physicians like you who are still trying to grow their scientific network with purpose, what would you like to say to them?
Again, I would say read the literature.
Yeah.
Look at the people who are leading the field in whatever you're interested in, and just contact them. I have a little anecdotal story. So when I was just beginning to work on this protein target, there, literally outside of the brain, nobody was looking at this anywhere else. And the first 7 or 8 papers on this topic outside the brain were ours. So that means very few people actually believed it or cared about it or was even thinking about it. And one day I was at this NIH study section. I was sitting next to a professor from Harvard.
Okay.
And he had a colleague, a medicinal chemist at Harvard named Nathaniel Gray, who published a cell paper on a protein called BMK, big mitotic kinase, in, I forget, some cancer that he thought it was going to work. But in the table, in the paper, there was the protein that I was working on.
Oh.
So I spoke to the guy next to me. I said, "Is Nathaniel Gray a nice guy?" He said, "Oh, yeah." So the next day I called him on the phone, introduced myself, told him what I was working on, and I told him how I found him. I asked him about the protein. He said he really didn't know anything about the protein. But I said, "Oh, but it was in your paper." He said, "Oh, yeah, we list all the different targets there." Right? So he said, "Let me call you back tomorrow." So he did his research on me, called me back, and asked if we could collaborate.
Nice.
And I said, "Yes, that's why I called you." and he said, "Well, the way he works is he develops drugs, he publishes a drug, and he waits for people like me to call him so we can test his drugs into different cancers. And we've done that, and he finally published the big paper on the functional targeting of this protein. And when he published it, the rest of the world caught on.
Wow.
And that just helped me out. So that's an example of how collaboration works.
But then you had to show up at that meeting. You had to also, talk about your work, and you had to also see that the proteins he had listed out, there was something there that stood out to you. So you initiated that. So kudos to you. I think that's what I'm trying to tease out of here is, how we also need to show up at these meetings and talk about our research and then follow up as well, right?
That's right.
And look at what came out of that.
Oh yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, so we've talked about academic medical medicine, right? How about for those who might be considering entrepreneurship? What funding pathways or models should they be exploring early? And I think it's very critical given the current climate we're in.
Well, I remember when I was young doing this, I went to a meeting and there were all these big shots by name from their papers, right? And they were presenting, this was a American Association of Cancer Research meeting.
Nice.
And this was the time when you had to start mentioning your disclosures. And all of the keynote speakers had companies. And before that, I didn't understand that if you're doing, quote, cutting edge research, then your research is likely cutting edge enough to start a company and make money. You just have to have all the proper disclosures. Right. But the truth is, what I learned is everybody doing real science had their own entrepreneurial interests, including the person I just talked about, Nathaniel Gray. And what I mean by that is, if you're doing good science, good research, then you are doing entrepreneurial research. But you have to have business people, or people with some business acumen that can navigate those business parts of entrepreneurship, because most of us who've had scientific or medical careers have no real understanding of the business part of this. And I still don't, and because I refuse to succumb to that bottom line mentality. But you have to have somebody that can guide you towards the right way.
Yeah. What is and thanks for sharing that, by the way. I think that will resonate with so many of our listeners. So given that the training for medicine, from what I've heard, doesn't really prepare you for entrepreneurship.
Oh, no.
Were there some gaps in knowledge you had to fill by yourself, and how did you go about doing that?
Gap is probably too small a word.
Sorry, cousin.
but
Mariana Trench.
but I had to find people that could help me, direct me, tell me what mistakes they made, and things like that. My father always used to tell me when I was a young kid. He said, he called me Chips. He said, Chips, it's always good to learn from your mistakes, but it's much better to learn from other people's mistakes. So by talking to people and finding out what hurdles, obstacles they met, what mistakes they made, has helped me to avoid some of those errors. But at the same time, you have to get people that know what they're doing, because we often have to stay in our lanes.
Yeah. Okay. again, it goes back to knowing oneself, and then if you have those gaps in knowledge or whatever the vacuum will be, find ways to fill it up.
That's
And
right.
hopefully the mistake you're learning from is not going to be your own mistake, right?
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Again, it still goes back to networking and being in community that can support one when we're embarking on new places like this. So thanks for echoing everything we've always talked about on the podcast with other guests. So it's always good to have that recursivity in episodes. So thank you so much. Now, when you reflect on your career so far, what's one lesson you wish you had learned earlier?
I wish I had learned how to make money earlier.
But wait, would one say that being a physician, that kind of already includes you in the money-making demographic of the U.S.?
Well, not really. That in again, one of the pitfalls of training at places like WashU is that their prestige and their impact is usually traded for income. So they pay you less because you're there. And I wish I could have gotten the knowledge that I got there and moved on a little earlier than when I did. But I'm kind of joking that I really can't come up with anything concrete that I would have rather learned earlier.
Okay. Perhaps that's another way of saying that wherever you are right now, if you could do it all over again, you still take the same steps and no regrets. Yeah.
Well, other than being an actor or an athlete.
Oh yeah. Then you can make the most amount of money. But isn't that like short term though?
No,
unless you have your own podcast.
Also just joking.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Now, can you walk us through a day in your life right now? What you do currently when you wake up in the morning, what your day looks like? And I can imagine maybe a day is too short to explain that. Perhaps a week in your life.
Well, I'll go with the day.
Okay.
So when I wake up, I get up. My wife drives me to work because I have these visual disabilities now. I come into the office and or lab, and I start working with my managers, my assistant, to go through the emails, and then start multitasking. So I discuss different projects that are in play, active, past, future, with everyone during the day, put out fires, and then begin to prepare for new grants, write new grants, think about grants, talk about grants, talk about science, talk about politics, and then go home, eat, go to sleep, and think about those things, and then wake up and start the next day.
Thank you. Now, in addition to networking skills and that self-awareness and resilience, what additional skills would you say anyone trying to venture into academic medicine should have?
I think they should have high self-esteem, the willingness to accept criticism, turn criticism into positive things, ignore the biases and negative things that people may or may not say about you, but just have the will to just move forward with what you want to do. But ultimately, you kind of have to love what you want to do.
Yeah.
You have to love what you're doing. I know that's a cliche, but I found that to be absolutely true.
Yeah.
If there was a way to do this for free, I would.
That's a good that's hopeful, by the way, because I know not everyone in medicine really enjoys doing it, but to find someone who does it well and enjoys it, that's a blessing. And thanks for adding to that conversation. Now, where do you see the future of your field headed, right? Especially with emerging tools like AI, digital pathology, precision oncology. What excites or concerns you the most?
Well, I think I was probably a slow adapter to or adopter to AI, meaning it took me about 5 minutes to adapt to it. I believe the presence of AI currently has revolutionized science and medicine. And I think it will and has given us the opportunity to discover and coordinate all types of knowledge that normally you have to read through PubMed and you have to go read and read and read. You can get answers instantly on things that are unrelated to what you do, or that you think are unrelated to what you do, that are absolutely related to what you're doing in almost milliseconds. And I think if you ask the right questions and are well versed in whatever your field is, I think AI will improve your productivity dramatically. I wish I was younger and the AI was here when I was younger, but if you have ideas, it's wonderful. Now, of course, there's many pitfalls to this type of computing power and things like that. So sometimes if you use AI in your writing and reading, things like that, the AI expects something to have happened based on what they find in the literature, but may not have happened yet. So you have to really be careful that you are not letting AI do the work for you.
The work for you, yeah.
You have to make AI do the work you want it to do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I teach about AI using one of my courses, and I always have to remind my students, you are the final writer, right?
That's right.
What you get out of it is only as good as what you put into it. But don't ascribe all of your autonomy. Otherwise, would really be you know how people say, oh, they're gonna take the jobs away. Take the jobs away. They've said that for many things, you know, when the bikes were introduced, when the printing press was introduced, when the calculators were introduced.
Right.
But humans, we found ways to work around this.
That's right.
But I feel like with AI, it's overwhelmingly good in so many regards. But then you as a final reader, it was almost like when I put something in it, I expect what the output should look like. I'm not surprised by what I'm finding, but it's organization of the thoughts. Like, but don't let it replace your faculty, your thinking, your powers, and that will become the challenge in the coming years, especially with student assessment. We might have to start getting rid of essays, because how do you grade those objectively anymore? You know, with AI generated content. Yeah,
you can't.
No, not anymore. Yeah.
But at the same time, maybe we never had to.
Right. But those essays, especially for like getting into medical schools, we're supposed to write your personal statements, and you know, those were sometimes determining factors whether you got into one school versus another school. So
that's what I'm saying. Maybe that shouldn't have been.
Right. This is a leveler now, right?
Because now what I find is the things that made people excel, if they were a beautiful writer, or they, you know, they were very articulate in what they wrote down and things like that, that gave them an advantage over the guy who knew everything, you know, but couldn't articulate it that well. But now you're going to be judged on what you can actually do, not how you said it.
And that would be beautiful to see. Now, speaking of the coming years as a wind down, what's next for you? Any projects you're excited about in the next chapter?
Yes, I'm very excited recently about the role of the innate immune system in coordinating everything. And what I mean by that, I'm learning now that how the tissues that we have interact with the immune milieu, and how the immune milieu reacts to everything from smoking to sunlight to injury to food. That coordinated response controls both homeostatic processes and disease processes. And what I'm learning now is that that's what we probably should be targeting, which is why immunotherapy has been so dramatically successful.
Yeah.
Because getting your own body to fight everything is historically what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so if you can help the immune system to avoid whatever disturbances causes it to not work as well, that might be the holy grail of science. And that's what I'm learning now.
Sounds very exciting. Now, how do you wind down after a very busy day or week?
I actually listen to books on tape.
Oh, nice. What genres do you particularly enjoy?
Fiction, only fiction.
Okay.
Detective, cowboy fiction. I've actually been hooked on that recently.
Nice.
And spy, mysteries, that kind of stuff. But only fiction, though.
Right. Okay. Oh, I forgot to ask this. So you from New York, what brought you to Oklahoma?
Oh, this job.
Oh, just a job. Okay.
Yeah. So I went from Brooklyn to Howard, DC to Atlanta to Baltimore. No, I'm sorry, Atlanta to Philly, Philly to Baltimore, Baltimore to St. Louis, and St. Louis to Oklahoma. That has been my trajectory, so to speak.
You're just making your way slowly down south, slowly but surely.
Yeah, next thing I'll probably be in Mexico soon.
Right. And earlier on, you talked about retiring back to the Caribbean, right?
Yeah, my father's Jamaican.
What part of Jamaica?
Kingston.
Okay, the capital city. Have you been there before?
No, never been there.
So you're looking forward to going back there and retiring?
Not really. No. I've been to Barbados, Cancun. The Dominican Republic is actually my favorite place.
Beautiful beaches, yeah.
And that's. But I'd like to go maybe to the Virgin Islands or Aruba to try those kind of places.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So before you go real quick, we do something on this podcast where we have our current guest answer a question that was left behind by any of the previous guests. And then in turn, they get to leave a question in the pile that the future guest would, answer to. So currently I have 9 questions because we had episodes with more than 1 people on the mic. So can you choose a number from 1 to 9 and I'll tell you who asked the question and the question they asked.
7.
7. Oh, all right. So this is from Ashley coming forward, who works for American Indians and group. And she would like to know, she's an epidemiologist. What brings you the most joy in the work you do?
Finding new connections to that explain scientific phenomena.
Finding new connections. Great. And in the spirit of recursivity, what question would you like to leave for the next guest?
what do you think the strategy should be to re-energize academic medicine?
So what do you think the strategy should be to re-energize academic medicine again?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Are there any final thoughts you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
No, I'd just like to thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to do this.
Oh, no. Thank you. Thank you for your time, and a special shout out to your team for just coordinating all of this and helping with, making sure that we get you on today. And yeah, so for everyone listening today, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an honor to have Dr. Courtney on the podcast. And we hope that this episode resonates with you, whether you're a boarding researcher, a clinician thinking about taking a leap into translational science, or someone just navigating the messy middle of academia and entrepreneurship. We hope this episode gave you something real to hold on to, be it a mindset, a model, or just a moment of I'm not alone. And thank you so much, Dr. Houchen, for sharing so generously. And we hope to. Sorry, go ahead.
Is there a way for me to distribute this podcast somehow?
Oh yeah, definitely. So we have episodes released on a monthly basis. Mm-hmm. So once the episode is about to air, I would send you the link, the flyers, and all of that. You're gonna get you get a comprehensive email from me on how to listen, how to share, and all of that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Keep up the good work. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. All right, bye-bye.
All right.